If only I could have reached the early high zenith stage. That way, we'd have a much easier time against that guy, Jin Tong sighed. A pang of sympathy welled up in Hanli's heart upon seeing this. It seemed that Jin Tong had been forced to mature a lot during the time that they had been pursued by the gold-devouring Immortal. However, what Jin Tong said next immediately made him realize that she was still just the same greedy little girl as before. This body looks really good, uncle. Should I eat it as well? Maybe that'll allow me to get to the mid-high zenith stage. This is the body of a gray immortal, and it's filled with baleful qi. Are you sure you want to eat it? Hanli asked with an exasperated expression. Jin Tong immediately began shaking her head vigorously upon hearing this. On second thoughts, I still haven't completely digested what I ate earlier. Xiaobai has a much better appetite than I do, so it can have this body. Right at this moment, the sound of breathing suddenly rang out from the body, and Hanli hurriedly approached it to discover that its chest was heaving slightly, as if it had begun breathing. Furthermore, its eyes had fallen shut, and its eyeballs were frantically darting around beneath its eyelids, as if it had fallen into some type of nightmare and was desperately trying to wake up, but to no avail. Jin Tong was very startled to see this, and she asked, "Why is this thing suddenly alive again? And by the looks of it, is it having a nightmare?" Hanli offered no response, and he suddenly recalled what he had seen back in the Infernal Frost Immortal Manor. At the time, Moyu's body had also been a living corpse, but it had been unable to awaken due to the lack of a soul. The fact that this body had been successfully resurrected meant that the refinement process and the integration of Mo Guang had been successful. But why was it still unconscious? What was the problem? After a prolonged period of deep thought, an enlightened look suddenly appeared in Hanli's eyes. Aside from the restoration of Mo Yu's soul, there had been one more vital contributing factor to the awakening of the body in the Infernal Frost Immortal Manor, and that was the Origin Void Pill. Back then, Worm 3 had gone to great lengths to seek out Hanli to refine an Origin Void Pill for her, and that definitely wasn't a pointless gesture. As it turned out, the Origin Void Pill had played a pivotal role in Mo Yu's resurrection. With that in mind, Hanli immediately flipped a hand over to produce an Origin Void Pill, then squeezed the Grey Immortal's cheeks between his fingers to force its mouth open before feeding it the pill. After that, Hanli retreated back to around 30 feet away to continue observing in silence. Jin Tong was rather perplexed to see this, but she didn't ask any questions as she also retreated back to a safe distance away with Hanlei. A short while later, a loud burp rang out, and a plume of dense black smoke billowed out of the Grey Immortal's mouth. An apprehensive look appeared on Hanli's face upon seeing this, and he immediately dragged Jin Tong behind himself while channeling his spirit refinement technique. Right at this moment, Mo Guang's voice suddenly rang out from the Grey Immortal's body. "Don't attack, fellow Taoist Han! It's me!" After that, the Grey Immortal's body began to move, shaking out its own limbs as if it were growing accustomed to itself. "Prove it," Hanli demanded in a cold voice, not letting down his guard in the slightest. Mo Guang hesitated momentarily, then made a hand seal before opening his mouth, releasing a cloud of inky black baleful qi, which transformed into a black scroll that slowly unfurled itself in front of Hanli. Hanli swept his spiritual sense over the scroll to discover that it was the heavenly devil contract that they had signed. But even so, he remained wary and vigilant. Mo Guang could sense the restrictions that had been planted in his body by Hanli's spirit refinement technique, and he opened his mouth to swallow the black scroll again, then sighed in a resigned manner. "Your cautious nature really will never change, will it, fellow Taoist Han? If I wasn't this cautious, Ma Liang would still be your contractual partner right now," Hanli said in an indifferent voice. I didn't really think much about this in the beginning, but the more time I spend with you, the more I come to realize that the likes of Ma Liang really couldn't ever hope to hold a candle to you, Mo Guang said with a smile. "Instead of trying to flatter me, why don't you explain your current cultivation base? Why is it different from what you told me it would be?" Hanli asked in a cold voice. At this moment, Mo Guang was at the early high zenith stage, but his cultivation was constantly fluctuating like a flame that was swaying in the wind. unable to find any semblance of stability. Jintong could hear the animosity in Han Li's voice, and she didn't suppress her early high zenith stage aura any longer as she began glowering at Mo Guang with an unfriendly expression. Mo Guang hurriedly raised his hands in surrender upon seeing this, then explained, "Please don't misunderstand, fellow Taoist Lai. Only after I entered this body did I realize that it was far more powerful than I anticipated. I had been completely suppressed by it, and if you hadn't fed me that pill in a timely fashion, I would have most likely already ceased to exist by now. The integration process has only just been completed, yet you're already at the early high zenith stage. It doesn't look to me like you were in any danger at all, fellow Diosmo Guang." Han Li countered in a skeptical fashion. "I'm only at the true immortal stage at the moment, so I was actually biting off far more than I could chew by trying to take over this body. As a result, my cultivation base is quite unstable at the moment. Once it stabilizes, I'll be back down to the late golden immortal stage. At the very most, I can only stay at the high zenith stage for a short time," Mo Guang replied with a wry smile. Through their spiritual connection, Han Li could sense that Mo Guang's aura was indeed gradually falling back down to the late golden immortal stage, and the apprehension in his heart finally faded. "It looks like you're telling the truth. In that case, I'll place my trust in you. Rest assured and take some time to recuperate. I'll keep a lookout for you," Han Li said. "You have my thanks," Mo Guang replied, then immediately sat down with his legs crossed and began to meditate. In the sky above an azure mountain range, a giant ball of semi-transparent white light was hovering in mid-air. The ball of light was several dozen acres in size, and there were waves of white light constantly rippling over its surface, presenting a kaleidoscope-like effect that entranced the beholder. The ball of light was extremely eye-catching, but none of the nearby demon beasts dared to approach it. On the contrary, all of them were frantically attempting to get as far away from it as possible. A giant golden beetle could be seen at the center of the ball of white light, and it was none other than the high zenith stage gold devouring immortal. At this moment, it was completely still, as if it had been frozen in place, and its eyes were half open in a rather dreary fashion. Furthermore, a tiny white vortex could be seen swirling around in each of its pupils. If these white vortexes were to be magnified by 100-fold, one would discover that they were formed by countless specks of white light, within each of which was a flashing image. In one of the images, the gold-devouring immortal had already returned to the insect race, and it had led the insect race army to eradicate all of the nearby beast race settlements, securing a vast amount of territory and resources in the process. Not long after that, another gold-devouring immortal appeared in the primordial land in one of the other images. After some struggle, it was able to hunt down and devour this gold-devouring immortal too. In an underground cave deep below the insect race's territory, the gold-devouring immortal was curled up into a ball on a massive golden stone bed, and there was a pained look on its face. Its entire body was giving off extremely radiant golden light, alongside tremendous aura fluctuations that were undulating incessantly, while steadily trending up toward a bottleneck. Right at this moment, the aura fluctuations surging out of its body became even more violent, and they were crashing against the bottleneck like turbulent waves. With each wave that swept through the underground cave, it would tremble violently, as countless rock shards came clattering down from above. Resounding booms rang out one after the other, and the intervals between them were steadily shrinking. All the while, the golden light radiating from the gold-devouring immortal's body was becoming brighter and brighter, until it was as radiant as the sun. The golden light filled the entire underground cave, and it was rippling like water. Even though the walls of the cave had been reinforced by the gold-devouring immortal, countless cracks were still appearing on their surfaces, and these cracks were gradually widening by the second. Right at this moment, a loud screeching sound suddenly rang out from within the golden light, following which a tremendous aura erupted forth. The surrounding underground cave was instantly completely destroyed without being able to put any resistance, and the entire mountain also disintegrated. Countless rocks of different sizes came plummeting out of the sky. only to instantly be repelled upon contact with the golden light. At this moment, there was a massive golden cocoon hovering at the center of the golden light, and it was riddled with profound golden patterns that were giving off formidable law power fluctuations. The nearby world's origin chi converged in a frenzy to form balls of radiant golden light that were constantly streaming into the golden cocoon, making it thicker and thicker. At the same time, bursts of thunderous rumbling were ringing out incessantly within the cocoon, as if something terrifying were taking shape. Within the golden cocoon, the gold-devouring immortal had transformed into a tall and imposing man with bushy eyebrows and a square face that was riddled with golden patterns, presenting a rather peculiar sight to behold. Rays of golden light were constantly surging into the man's body from the surrounding golden cocoon, and his aura was still steadily elevating. I finally returned to the great encompassment stage. The man roared with excitement as he threw his head back in exultation, but right at this moment, his surroundings suddenly shuddered violently, following which a series of cracks emerged over the surrounding scene. In the end, the entire scene shattered like a pane of glass, then disintegrated into specks of translucent light. The man's ecstatic expression stiffened as he stood completely rooted to the spot.